Alright, we find ourselves here in beautiful Whitehorse, and there's a zombie apocalypse, and we want to get off the ground as fast as possible. So, how do we do it? Well, let's just hide this so we can see better. First up, we're just going to turn the key to the start position. Nothing happens, so you start diagnosing. Alright, the engine has a starter motor. Starter motor needs power. How do we give the starter motor power? Let's turn on the battery. Hit the starter again. Alright, so the starter's working, it's kicking over the engine, but the engine isn't catching. What does the engine need to run? It needs electricity for the spark plugs, which it's got because we've got the battery turned on. It needs fuel and it needs air. So let's take a look at the fuel. It's down here on the floor. We have a fuel selector. Fuel selector is set to, that's the right tank, that's the left tank, that's both tanks. Both tanks is fine. This is the fuel cutoff valve that turns off the fuel entirely, hidden behind this little this microphone wire. So that's set there. And this here, this lever is how much fuel to air mixture is going into the engine. This is no fuel. This is fuel. So okay, we got fuel going into the engine. And finally, we have a half tank in the left and right tank there. So we're good to go for fuel and air. Let's turn it over again. Hey, we got the engine caught now. Okay, we're good to go. Last thing we have to do, just remove the parking brake. And this is the throttle down here. Let's push in the throttle, and then we'll deal with steering. That's a zombie, so I run him over with my airplane. We're cool. See ya, zombie airplanes. So I'm just gonna point it roughly this way for no good reason. Run over these lights. Alright, and I'm looking at my airspeed, which is 40, 50, getting up to 60 knots now. It's in the green, so I can lift off. Just gonna pull up. Hey, look at my cool shadow. I'm off the ground. Woo! Okay. So, you're probably gonna notice that if you let go of the yoke, so I'm gonna let it go right now, you start nosing over, because it's like you're too front heavy almost. So you have to hold back on the yoke the entire time. This wheel down here, that's your trim wheel. And you can play with that trim wheel to balance out the airplane. Okay, I've now let go of the yoke and I'm just flying with the trim wheel here. Alright, that's alright. The plane's going to drift a bit to the left, which we'll correct with the yoke. Turn to the right. Okay, now that we're kind of flying, my hand's free, I don't have to worry about it as much anymore. Let's do a little bit of cleanup. We're away from the zombies, but we've only turned on half the airplane. First of all, we don't want our battery to die, so how do we recharge the battery? Well, there's a reason why these two switches are right next to each other. The alternator is a little generator that the propeller charges. That will recharge our battery. And we want our electronics turned on so we can figure out where we are. So you just flip on these two electronic switches. And you can see we're full throttle. We're not quite redlining the engine, but we don't want to become redlining the engine. So I'm just going to pull back the throttle a little bit. Alright, and all our electronics are now turned on. That beep was the airplane telling us it's good to fly. I still haven't touched any controls. I'm just drifting to the left here. Let me just hit this autopilot button. There we go. And now the plane will fly itself. It'll fly itself in a straight line, but it flies us in a straight line away from those dumb old zombies back there. Alright, that's it. That's how you escape zombies in your airplane. Real easy.